Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, more MagicBand details. A larger-than-life Avenger starts making appearances. Donald Duck's Sipper arrives.
Mike Wazowski also gets into the Halloween spirit. We begin our talk with former Imagineer Greg Combs and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard the DL Weekly podcast. Please lower your head and watch your step while boarding. If this is your first time listening, we hope you'll check out our website at DLWeekly.net. If you have more time to spend, becoming an official weekly tier at DLWeekly.net/support is an especially good value. Thanks for traveling with us today, and we hope you have a happy and memorable listen to this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of September 28th, 2022. I'm Teg Bushman.
And I'm Teresa Urban. Thank you to Scott K. for becoming an official weekly tier on our Patreon. Our supporters get some pretty fun perks like DL Weekly swag, bonus content, and access to our Discord community. If you would like some more Disney magic in your day, head on over to DLWeekly.net/support to join the community.
Well, you have heard us talk about our great experiences staying at the Howard Johnson Anaheim. Well, we have partnered with them to offer our listeners some cool discounts. Weekly tiers can get 15% off their stay, and Magic Keyholder weekly tiers get 20% off. To take advantage of these discounts, head on over to DLWeekly.net and click on the Howard Johnson logo. Be sure to use the promo codes on the site to get the discount that you qualify for.
Now let's get to the news.
For weekly tiers who have been out to Walt Disney World and used MagicBands, the implementation at Disneyland may confuse you. When they arrive sometime this fall, front gate cast members will continue to use the iPhones to scan the MagicBands. Also, instead of the fingerprint scan Walt Disney World uses, Disneyland will continue to use guest photos.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit different than what's going on currently at Walt Disney World. So right now, Walt Disney World, I believe last we went, basically everybody had MagicBands. I'm going to assume you can still scan in with your phone, but they don't have turnstiles like Disneyland and DCA do. They just kind of have these stations. They kind of look like the stations that you use to scan in for your lightning lanes. That sort of, just kind of like this little lighted pillar thing. They're really fun. They make a cool noise, different than the Disneyland scan noise. But yeah, so the cool thing there is you don't have the kind of bottleneck like we do now with the turnstiles. It's right, like you've got more people can go through a smaller space because you don't have the big bulky turnstiles there. But Disneyland is keeping the turnstiles. The phones that they have been using currently to scan your tickets and to take your photos are going to have the technology to read the MagicBands to scan you in. Pros and cons to this, obviously. It still will be faster than current with the printed tickets and with having everybody needing to pull the tickets up on their app as well, because you do have people that you don't have to wait for your phone to wake up. You just have to scan in with your MagicBand. But there might still be a little bit of a lag if it's your first day, because they do still have to take your photos. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if Disneyland will ever fully switch over to the setup to scan in like Walt Disney World currently has, if they'll ever get rid of the turnstiles, because that'd be a really big project for them to have to swap out all the turnstiles, but who knows?
I mean, they did it at Disney World. I do like the Disney World option where literally there's 4 of these like pylons basically, and one cast member can monitor like all 4. However, if you ever see any of these stupid viral videos that you can find online of people sneaking into Disney World, a lot of the times it's because they're watching 4 different pylons. Basically, the cast member gets distracted one way and somebody kind of quickly sneaks past. So there is some cons to that, I suppose. I do like the fact that they're doing photos instead of fingerprints, because I know that there's some privacy concerns with them having access to your fingerprints and all that good stuff. But I'm just excited for MagicBands to show up. I would just want them to use it. I will love the fact that I don't have to get my phone out to have my pass, which will be great. But like you said, I don't know how many people are going to have MagicBands just hanging around. I will say, I hope that they use the technology that are in phones and watches now, because a lot of the same RFID technology that the MagicBands use is in your phone and in your watch. So technically, you could use either of those devices to do this too, if Disney allows it. So maybe they'll do that, and that'll be really nice. I don't want to do it with my phone. One of the big things about MagicBands is getting away from the phone, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing it on my watch.
Well, a big green gamma radiated Avenger has started making his appearance at Avengers Campus in Disney California Adventure. The Hulk, which was previewed and announced to be coming to Avengers Campus during the D23 Expo, has been greeting guests in front of the Avengers headquarters building. What makes this character greeting so unique is its large size. It seems that there are some kinks that will need to be worked out, but that was probably why they are only having limited appearances for a limited time.
Yeah. So we saw this at D23 on stage. Of course, for us, it was far away or up on a screen, so it's hard to kind of see how they were going to do this. It does seem like there's some really cool technology, so I'm going to make some guesses here. So magic spoilers, magic spoilers, magic spoilers. It seems in the videos that I've seen that there is first of all, there's a barrier around the character when they come out, so you can't
and hug the Hulk's calf or something.
Right. But it does seem like, and I can't figure out if it's where his voice is coming out or if it's some type of microphone so the cast member in the costume can hear what guests are saying, because obviously the cast members' ears aren't there, whatever, they're in this contained thing. So it seems like the Hulk reacts to things that guests say. So there has to be some way for the cast member to hear that, to be able to do the responses, because there is a device there. The only other downside that people have talked about is the worst looking part of this apparatus, if you will, is the arms don't quite look right.
His arms don't relax fully down. So if you think of a person or a human, the top part of the arm, so like the shoulder to the elbow, relaxes correctly, but then from the elbow to his fingertips, they don't fall down at his side. They kind of flare out. It's like he's doing jazz hands a little bit. I'm sorry, I just act like now. I didn't even think about that until now, and now I'm just gonna see Hulk jazz hands.
Oh my goodness.
So I just ruined it for myself. So I apologize if I ruined it for anybody else, and Hulk jazz hands is gonna be a thing. But that's kind of the position he's in. The other thing too that I've seen with some videos is it seems like sometimes he has control issues with his fingers. Sometimes the control's not there, the joints aren't all working for his hands to work properly.
I think the problem with that from the demo that we saw at the D23 Expo is if you will, the naked arm apparatus seems to move very well, but is a very kind of delicate.
Yes.
And it seems like for this, they have to have almost to make it look like a Hulk hand, it has to have some type of glove over it.
Some sort of skin.
So that skin that goes over there, I think, is impeding the ability for the fingers and stuff to extend properly.
The one thing, if you do want to see the Hulk, he is a little bit difficult to catch. It's kind of like you have to be there at the right time, right place sort of thing. Cast members, if you ask, won't give you haven't been giving specifics. That might change, but they haven't been giving specifics, and it's not like you can look it up in the app and be like, oh yeah, it looks like the Hulk's going to be out at 10, noon, and 2, or whatever. They're not really advertising when the Hulk will make his appearance. So hopefully, if you want to catch the Hulk, you'll be able to be there at the right time and at the right place. Overall, though, this technology is so cool.
Oh yeah,
so fun. I'm glad they got it out into the parks. I know we were kind of picking on it, but I think like with anything, it's just going to get better with time and better with usage.
Yeah.
I just commend the cast members that are portraying these larger than life characters, because I can't imagine. I just can't imagine being in that, in the heat and the balance and the control and all that. That's a talent in and all, on definitely. Another level. So kudos to all of them, and kudos to the team that brought this together.
Yeah. And I think this is a version 1 thing, and I think the only way they could properly test it is to put it in the park and see how it reacts to things. So I think as time goes on, they'll make some modifications, and this will just start to look better and better, and we'll end up getting... I'm hoping that they have some other characters. Honestly, I think it'd be really cool to have
Thanos?
Sully.
Oh, Sully
would be great. Thanos would be amazing. So there's lots of large characters that you could use this with that I hope they do in the
I know
future.
they have Big Hero 6 as an inflatable. I'm trying to think of what other large character. Oh, Wreck-It Ralph. Yep, because they do have a Wreck-It Ralph version that we've seen in Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
But maybe it could be
different
plussed with this technology instead.
It's a cool technology. I'm glad that they figured it, at least even out to the point where they are now.
Yes.
Well, Donald Duck will be joining Popcorn Bucket Mickey as a cute Halloween sipper at the park. Donald is dressed in a candy corn costume for Halloween and is carrying a small trick-or-treat bucket for treats. The sipper is available for $21.25 at both Disneyland and, if you're in Florida, Walt Disney World.
I'm just saying, I'm going to throw it out there. This might be a hot take, but Donald is the winner in my eyes here. This sipper is so adorable. If I had to choose between the Mickey Mummy popcorn bucket and this candy corn Donald sipper, hands down, candy corn Donald sipper. It's great. I just love this so much.
What about it is sticks out to you as
I don't know. He's so cute, and he kind of just looks ridiculous and slightly uncomfortable in his costume. It's a very Donald reaction to be in a costume, But I don't know. I just love this costume. I think it's very, very fitting for some reason. And I don't know. It's cute and it's fun.
It is cute and fun.
Well, Donald isn't the only one getting in on the act of dressing up for Halloween and going on sale. Mike Wazowski in a pumpkin costume is the new design for a bottle topper with straw. The topper allows guests to drink from a bottle of soda or water without an open top. The straw allows for the bottle to be held upright as well. The topper is $6.99. So how this kind of works is I haven't seen one of these before. I feel like these bottle toppers are new. So you take your bottle of water, your bottle of soda, take off the plastic cap, and then you screw this cap on. The cap is the base that Mike is standing on, and then your straw goes in through that base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm excited because
so cute.
I buy bottles of water and bottles of soda in the park, and I love the idea that I can screw something on like this and be able to drink it so easily, because one of the annoying things is I'll unscrew it, take a drink. I don't want to carry it, so I put it in my backpack, and then it sits there and gets warm, and I don't drink it anymore. This would be great because I feel like I could still put a cap on it or something and put it away, but I could more easily drink from it without having to unscrew the cap and screw the cap. And I've dropped the caps and everything else. And plus, this is stinking cute.
It is. I mean, of course. I mean, Mike Wazowski as a pumpkin is a wonderful Halloween costume. It's just so fun.
It is.
I hope we get to see more of these bottle toppers in the future.
Agreed. Well, mobile ordering is the wave of the future, according to Disneyland. Recently, registers were removed from the Emporium and replaced with new merchandise islands. Small mobile checkout podiums are at the exits now to help guests who use the service.
So there's been, of course, mixed reviews online with this, as there always is. My take with this, so this was the entrance, the registers were by the Crystal Arcade entrance. A lot of people use this as an entrance, and this was kind of an often either not staffed, not busy, or just overlooked area for checking out. I feel like a lot of people walk through this area and not a lot of people stop and check out in this area. Usually they're in the main Emporium using one of the multiple banks of registers that are in there, or they're walking through and going to go to one of the other areas. So to me, it made sense to take out this big counter that they had there because it does open this up quite a bit more. There are a couple more displays now on the floor, but the biggest thing for me here is it's a better flow of traffic in and out of that entrance and exits for guests to be able to pop in and out.
Yeah, I agree with you, everything you said. This was kind of a weird bottleneck kind of area. I'm glad that we can free some of this stuff up. I do hope that this doesn't mean that they're going to get rid of all of the checkouts and leave one or two.
Imagine.
Because part of the theme of Main Street is it's like an Emporium back in the day, so you'd have checkout counters. So that's just theming wise for me. The other thing too in general about mobile checkout, once I think I've used mobile checkout twice. We used it at D23.
Times, yeah.
I generally liked it. The problem that I ran into that felt clunky to me was just sometimes when you're trying to hold merch and get it to scan the barcode and then put it in a bag, and I always felt like I was stealing almost. I just have to get in that mindset that they want you to do this. And then obviously you still have the cast members that when you go to leave, you still have to show the thing too. So I don't know. I think there's going to be people that to go to a cashier, and there's people that are going to be fine with mobile ordering. I
would call this mobile checkout.
Mobile checkout,
yeah, mobile ordering, I would say, is the food stuff. The thing I like about this is the choice. You have the choice to go to the traditional cash register, or you have the choice to use the mobile checkout. And I prefer going to the checkout. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a habit thing. But if the lines are crazy and there was just one thing that I was running in quick to grab, 100% use the mobile checkout instead, just because it's convenient for those quick things. Now, if you're buying a whole shopping cart worth of merchandise, I think it would be, like you were saying, cumbersome.
It's
and
like using
difficult.
the self-checkout at the grocery store. If you have a full cart of stuff, you go to a cashier.
Yes.
I also want to point out we are streaming our recording of this episode into our Discord chat. Again, go become a weekly tier at dlweekly.net/support. 2 folks that are in there right now are saying that they really love the mobile checkout. So there are people that love it out there too. So I just want to make sure that viewpoint got put in there as well, because I was being kind of anti-mobile checkout.
Well, weekly tiers who are going to be at the resort soon can take a photo with a new Hocus Pocus 2 photo op in downtown Disney. The location is a new one for a photo op and is sort of out of the way. It's located between Tortilla Joe's and Splitsville, away from the main walkway. If you are a DL Weekly supporter on Patreon, be sure to join in on the Hocus Pocus 2 watch party this Friday, September 30th at 6 p.m. Pacific. One thing that I think this looks like the same spot if you were there for the brief period of time that the Stanley Cup made its appearance in downtown Disney, where the Stanley Cup was set up, that is where the Hocus Pocus 2 photo op is set up.
But if you didn't know this was there, you could easily walk by and not even see it.
I don't know if there's signs or not. I'm going to hope that there's signs pointing people back to this fun photo op.
Yeah, it's cute. I will tell you, I'm very excited for Friday. So excited that Hocus Pocus 2 is coming out, and it was so funny because I was so busy lately I did not pay attention to our community calendar and was like, we should have a movie night this Friday for Hocus Pocus, and I went in and I looked at our community calendar and we already had one scheduled. So the day it comes out, a bunch of weekly tiers can get together in the Discord chat. We'll talk about the movie as it happens. We can all kind of have that community experience, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know this is off topic and kind of tangential here, but what do you think? What are your initial thoughts of just like seeing the trailers and stuff? Do you have high hopes?
I'm
low
scared.
hopes? You're scared.
I'm scared because I want it to. I'm just scared because I want it to live up to the fun, awesome quirkiness that was the first one, and I feel like that's a lot of pressure. So I'm just like, I'm a little scared because I feel like I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I'm trying really hard not to get my hopes too high. I'm very excited, but I'm trying to keep my hopes in check.
I hope that for me it doesn't turn into what I always claim happens with Star Wars, where we grew up with the original trilogy, and then seeing this, it's going to be like, oh, it's terrible. But it's because like we're remembering the nostalgia of seeing it back when we were younger. So I'm a little worried about that. However, I have seen, I don't remember where I saw it, but there was somebody had compiled reviews that have already come out about it, because some people have already been able to see it and review it.
For, like, the
and most of the reviews have been overwhelmingly positive.
Well, that's good. I do think the from what little we've seen and know about what the new storyline is and what like the new thing is with how the witches, how they come back and all that.
Right.
That sounds really interesting to me.
Sure.
Because it's about these like younger girls that are into witchcraft, and one of them turned 16, and anyways, and somehow that's how the Sanderson sisters come back, is through this young girl group. So I'm really curious and really interested in what that storyline's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I feel like as long as the 3 main people, so Winifred and Sarah and Mary, are anything like they were in the original thing, I think I'll enjoy it just because they are there. And it doesn't matter. Hopefully it doesn't matter what the story is. I'll still just enjoy the fact that to seeing more content from them, because they're a lovely comedy trio that I would love to see as much as possible.
They are. I am excited. I did see the sneak peek of Mary on the Roombas, and I am curious to see more of that now, because it was just as ridiculous as I was hoping.
This photo op has her on the Roombas.
The photo op has the Roombas too. Yes, I know. I love it.
If you've been wanting an excuse to stay at a Disneyland Resort hotel, the current deals might be for you. If you're a Disney Visa card member and use it to book your stay between October 20th and December 22nd, you could save up to 15% on your reservation. This deal is for Sunday through Thursday nights with a 10% discount on premium or standard rooms at the Paradise Pier Hotel, or 15% off premium or standard rooms at the Disneyland or Grand Californian hotels.
I think this is, is it make these hotels in the price point that I wish these hotels were in so that I could stay at them all the time? No. But if this has been something that's been on your Disney bucket list or something that you've been really wanting to do or looking forward to do, it is nice to have these go on sale a little bit and make them, not quite as expensive. Because unfortunately, our resort hotels are much more pricey than the ones out in Walt Disney World because we only kind of have we don't have a value hotel, really.
Right.
We just kind of have the top tier hotels, which they're very fun. They're very magical. I encourage everyone to, at some point in their life, stay at one of the Disneyland Resort hotels just for the experience of it, because they are very cool. The theming's amazing, of course. But yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with the hotels. I really love the hotels, but I really don't like the price point. I don't like the price tag.
So, as a question that just came up in my mind, would you ever consider staying at one of these hotels for the podcast? Like one of our trips, like instead of staying at the Hojo or the Candy Cane or whatever, that we would stay at one of these.
To me, these hotels are what I use them for. Like they're special occasion hotels. So for those of you that maybe don't know what the price points are for the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian Hotel, and the Disney Pixar, soon-to-be Pixar Place Hotel. So the Pixar Place Hotel is the one that's the least expensive. And the average night rate is $492. Disneyland Hotel average is $613. And the Disney Grand Californian Hotel and Spa average is $868. So to me, one night at the Disney's Grand Californian Hotel is like what multiple days at a non-property hotel. So that's really a tough pill for me to swallow. Yeah. So I thought it was really wonderful and really magical that we stayed 3 nights at the Disneyland Hotel while we were there for the wedding. And so I think that's...
You did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't invited.
No. I mean, I got to hang out in the room.
So, yeah, because we got... so I stayed the night before with my mom in our room at the Disneyland Hotel. We got ready that morning in our hotel room so that we then just went down to the ceremony. That was super convenient. And then we stayed the night of the wedding and the night after the wedding. We were at the Disneyland Hotel. And it was really wonderful. It was really magical. But with how much time we spend on property versus at the hotel, I feel like I'd need to just be holed up in the hotel and do all the hotel stuff.
Right. Well, the only reason I was thinking about it is, we were looking at, even if you go back to this previous trip, minus D23, I was just thinking if we ever made like a long weekend, it might, to maximize our time in the park, it might be worth it to stay there because then we're basically bloop right there, bloop right there. Just a thought that literally I did not think of the thing. And I did not realize, I honestly thought the Grand Californian was in the $500 a night range, not the almost $900 a night range.
Yeah, they're spending.
So maybe if they offer, because I think we've reported before, didn't they have a 35% off per night?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes they do have steeper discounts. You never know.
But the other problem is like I said, long weekend. Well, they never have the deals for the weekends. Yeah. It's always the Sunday through Thursday. So,
but if this is something you are interested in taking advantage of, be sure to contact our friends at Concierge, and they can help get this trip and these reservations made for you. They also know when all of the good deals are happening and when better times to go or book is, or when prices are seasonally, if it's going to be lower, higher, all that. They know all the ins and outs of that stuff.
Yes.
So contact Concierge if this is something that you're interested in taking advantage of.
Absolutely.
Last year, a brand new separate ticketed event came to Disneyland for the holidays. Disney's Merriest Nights at Disneyland Park took place last year over 5 select nights. Theme park reporter Scott Gustin tweeted that the event was officially not returning for the 2022 holiday season. This was interesting. So this was not a party that if I had the opportunity to go, if I was local or if we were going to be in the area,
sure.
This is not like Oogie Boogie Bash where I'd be like, we have to go, or, I was going to plan a trip all around this. I mean, it was a brand new event last year. So with brand new events are always going to be some kind of growing pains. So I'm a little sad that it only made it the one season and didn't, continue on, even though this wasn't something that particularly interested me. The thing that was the coolest that was at this event was the Muppets on the omnibus. Hands down.
I was gonna say, I was trying to remember what was part of this.
They had different themes. So like there was different Christmas parties in the different lands. So there was I think it was Lilo and Stitch had a Christmas party in Adventureland. Maybe it was I don't remember who. There was different themed parties throughout the land. Tomorrowland had a dance party.
Okay, Mickey Mouse had a party on Main Street. Mm-hmm. Kermit the Frog was picking their friends.
Yep, it was a Victorian.
We're in the
theme.
coach. New Orleans Square, Princess Tiana, Miguel, Frontierland, Lilo and Stitch in Adventureland, Elsa in Fantasyland, and Buzz Lightyear in Tomorrowland.
Yep.
See, I feel like I don't know what the Christmas or holiday season equivalent of Oogie Boogie Bash would be.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they did something like that, what even would that be? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So if they did something like that, I think it would have been more popular.
It's a little sad to me that it only got the 1 year run.
Yeah.
And it didn't really, pan
out for a second year.
It was also expensive.
Yeah.
It was
the holiday time is one of their busier times,
yes.
And so they have to, if they're going to be closing the park earlier, they have to be making that up somehow. So
definitely.
Psst, avast there. It'd be too late to alter course, mateys. And there be trivia questions lurking in every cove, waiting to be answered. Listen close and keep your ruddy Disney knowledge handy. That be the best way to answer correctly. And mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tales. Here comes seeking questions and long-lost Disney information, eh? Sure, you come to the proper place, but keep a weather eye open, mates, and hold on tight, with both hands, if you please. There be squalls ahead, and James and Vern waiting for them what don't answer correctly.
Welcome to Trivia Land, where we've got some excellent new listener-submitted questions. Are you feeling ready? You got those thinking caps on?
You just never know what to expect when one enters Trivia Land.
I mean, James thought we were going to do terrible last time, and we did pretty okay. So, cautiously optimistic.
Okay, I like that. That's good. At least you used optimistic. So, yeah. All right. Well, your first question, submitted by listener Stephen S. When looking at the Disneyland Parks app, if you zoom all the way out on the map, what 2 attractions can you see?
If you zoom all the way out on the map.
Matterhorn and Grizzly River Run.
I'm confused by the question.
So you got your phone, and you got the Disney Parks app up, and you got the map up, where you can see all of the attractions and the wait times and all that. Mm-hmm. Use your thumb and your forefinger and zoom all the way out.
So you're seeing the entire resort?
Zoom all the way out, so you're practically in outer space. You can only see 2 attractions. Which 2 are they?
I'm going to say Guardians.
Oh.
This is going to sound crazy. I'm going to say Guardians and Incredicoaster.
And Incredicoaster. So nothing in Disneyland?
And you said what, Matterhorn?
I said Matterhorn and Grizzly River Run.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking those are, maybe space. I'm sticking with my first. I'm sticking with my gut.
All right, and those are your final answers?
Final answers.
All righty. Your second regular round question, submitted by listener Kevin M. According to Jesse's Critter Carousel, where was Jesse born?
Oh, Lord.
No idea.
The rootinest, tootinest Wild West. I don't know. Sounds like something stupid she'd say. I don't really pay attention to Jessie because for some reason I always
was Woody born?
Thought her character was annoying.
I don't know what any of the characters' backstories really are. Well, I mean, we know Buzz's now because we have an entire movie. But
But that wasn't even Buzz. That was the character Buzz Lightyear was based off of.
Right. So that's the toy's backstory.
Right.
Why are the toys a toy? The other toys were from a TV show, but I don't remember.
There's Woody's Roundup, but wasn't there something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm stumped on that one. What's your answer?
Oh, I said the Rootinest Tootinest Wild West, whatever. 'Cause I said the Rootinest Tootinest Wild West, whatever. Because it sounds like something she'd say. That's a hard one. Who submitted that?
That is from Kevin M.
Kevin M. Who?
Rootin' Tootin' Wild West. Okay. And nothing.
I like how you wrote that down. Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Final answers?
Yep.
All right. Your third regular round question from listener Kate A. What are the names of the holiday overlays for Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters?
What are the names?
So there are holiday overlays. What do they name those overlays?
Oh, man.
Oh, geez. Because there's the holiday one,
I think
right?
this one's Hollow Screams. Hollow Screams, like Hall.
Like you're towing it? Hollow Screams?
Hollow Screams.
Because for some reason I thought that was the... Because what... Wait. Luigi's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not Mater's.
Maybe that's Mater's.
See, that's what I was thinking. Kate A is listening to us stream this, so she's probably cackling at us right now.
Dang.
Luigi's... Because it's normally called Rollickin' Roadsters.
Mm-hmm.
What's... For some reason, Joy to the Whirl.
Joy to the Whirl. It
That's
is.
one?
It is Joy to the Whirl.
Thank you. Joy to the Whirl for Christmas. And what's the Halloween one?
That's what I'm saying. Hollow Screams, but that could be Mater.
Joy to the Whirl.
Job,
Where did
Shannon.
that come from? Like,
I don't know, because I was
head?
trying to remember. I'm like, I remember that one was a play on a song. So I was like, is it something with Jingle Bells? It's something with this.
I don't know the Halloween one though. Although when Vern tells us the answer, I'm going to be like, of course that was the answer.
I'm sticking with Hollow Screams, even though that could be
HAULO Screams.
Hollow Screams.
Okay.
And you've got nothing for Halloween?
Nothing. And you're hopping on the
it is Joy to the
World
yeah.
bandwagon.
All right. And are those your final answers?
Yeah.
Final.
All right. And your fourth and final regular round question from listener Donna S. How many car styles are there in Radiator Springs Racers?
Car styles?
Like different models of car.
Now, I thought they were all the same car in different colors.
I thought so too.
I'm going to say one. Like the vehicles, right?
I'm going to say...
The ride vehicle.
Okay.
I'm going to say 5. That was like my first instinct. It's probably going to be like 4.
I'm going to have to pay closer attention.
Yeah.
I like now don't ask me what they are, but I enjoy looking at the license plates.
Well, we had that as a trivia question
the license
before.
plates are usually pretty fun. And the colors, but yeah, I guess I haven't paid very close attention to the body shape.
All right. Final, and so that was, I'm sorry,
1 for me and 5 for Tag.
5 and 1. Okay. And your bonus question from listener Todd B. Donnie Osmond has stated that when he and his brothers were performing in Disneyland, they still needed to attend school and do their homework. Disney even provided them with a makeshift classroom. In which attraction was this classroom?
The Osmonds were there.
The attraction.
That's interesting because I would have thought it would have been like a backstage building or something, but it's an attraction.
Let's say the Main Street Theater.
The Opera House?
No, like the theater, like that plays the shorts.
Oh, the cinema.
Yeah, cinema.
I'm going to say the Main Street Opera House because that seems like a good spot for them to do school.
How many of them were? I don't know. Because see, I was thinking the Opera House too, but then you have to take. Then Lincoln wouldn't be going.
Yeah, but this was back in the day when they were there doing stuff.
Oh.
Do we know what year they were doing stuff, Fern?
I can look quick.
No, that's okay.
I thought they performed on that 10th anniversary special or that Disney. It was the Disneyland After Dark special that they had that I thought was 1965. So Lincoln would have not quite been there yet, or would have? Yeah, because it was the 64-65 World's Fair. So Lincoln wouldn't have been there yet.
He came early. He came before the fair was ended.
But there was still the Opera House there before Lincoln was there.
First appearance in 1962.
Maybe it's like the Golden Horseshoe.
Oh, well, do you want to change your answer to that? Or are you sticking with the Main Street Cinema?
Nah, I'm sticking.
Okay. So we got the Main Street Cinema for Teresa and the Opera House for me.
All right. Final answers.
Yes.
Fine.
All right. Well, listeners, how do you think they did? How did you do listening at home? Stick around until after the discussion, and we will all find out together.
Well, this week we have another very special guest with us. We have Greg Combs, who is another former Imagineer, and we're very excited to have you on. So welcome, Greg.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you both for letting me join you guys. I'm excited to talk to you.
I mean, I think we've gotten really lucky, Teresa. We've gotten so many cast members recently and a couple Imagineers. This is how did we luck into all of this? But yes, Greg, thank you so much for being on. So we'll start like we do with everybody, so let people kind of get to know you a little bit better. Tell us your Disney story. What got you kind of involved with Disney from as far back as it goes to today?
Okay, I'll do my best. Now, I am probably not your typical person, though I can't say I know what typical is, right? I really didn't know much about Disney growing up. I mean, certainly as a kid, I should start by saying I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. And growing up in the Midwest, my parents took me to Disney movies as a kid. I would watch The Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday evenings on television. And I was aware that Disneyland existed, but it wasn't something that I ever thought that I was going to visit, my family was quite content to be in the Midwest. The most we ever traveled was the summer vacation to Colorado. And that was as far as we went. And so that was my world. And I never gave it a thought beyond that. And then as I got older, and I developed an interest in theater and became interested in designing for theater, sets and lighting design. That was my original training. And while I was going to school studying theater, I met a young woman, an actress by the name of Kathleen, who became my wife. And she was from Pittsburgh. We met in St. Louis, where I went to school. We moved back to Omaha. And after a couple of years of doing theater in Omaha, she said, you know what? It'd be really great if we tried the rest of the world. I've seen Omaha. I'm ready for more. And she said, we can either go to New York or LA. Where do you want to go? And both scared the heck out of me. Being a Midwestern boy, I was like, I don't know. But long story short, we ended up in Los Angeles. And at about that time, Disney was in one of those interesting periods. Imagineering, the history of Imagineering is rife with expanding so that they can meet the needs of the company at that time. Ever since the beginning of WED, growing to be able to build Disneyland and then later on Walt Disney World. But then there's times also when you have all these people and you don't have any work for them to do. And you go, well, what are we going to do with these people? And so there were times of contraction, times where they had to get smaller. And they had gone through that period in the 80s because they had produced Walt Disney World in the 70s. They had produced Epcot in the early 80s, along with Tokyo Disneyland, and then some other really great attractions in the 80s. But then there was a period where they got smaller, and for a while they weren't sure what was going to be next. And then all of a sudden, here comes Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, and I knew what they called Disney Decade was on the horizon. And it certainly started to manifest itself. MGM Studio Tour was already underway at that time, but Paris Disneyland became the big project. And here I was, a young theater designer sitting in Los Angeles. And in those days, keep in mind, this is my generation. This is pre-internet. There was no LinkedIn. There was no Indeed. There was no Glassdoor. There was no way to look for jobs other than getting the Los Angeles Times and scouring the want ads, which is what I did. And in the want ads, it said set designers wanted, and there was a number to call. And it was not Disney. It was a temp agency that was clearing resumes for Disney because they were looking to expand to build Paris. But if they knew if they put a mouse in the ad and they said it was Disney, they would be besieged with people applying for these jobs. But all I saw was the word set designer. And I went, well, I'm a set designer. I'm going to apply for that job and see what I get. And I went to the tape agency. They looked at my stuff and they said, okay, yeah, you'll do. Here's the name and the address. Go to this location and talk to this guy. And I looked at it and it said Disney on it. And I went, well, wait a minute. I don't do animation, right? Because I thought all I knew about Disney was the movies, really. So I was thinking they wanted me to work on animated movies. And I thought, nah, that's not my thing. I don't do that. And they said, no, you don't understand. It's a theme park. Just go talk to them. You're going to be fine. And I show up just quivering because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I've never been to a theme park at this point in my life, right? I had no idea what it was. And I meet a guy by the name of Mitch Gill who ended up later becoming my boss. And he looked at my portfolio. And it turned out he was a theater guy too, out of USC. And he looked at my stuff and said, yeah, you'll do. And start on Monday. And I went, what am I doing? And he says, we'll show you. And so I show up the next week, and the next thing I know, I'm drawing storefronts for Main Street on Paris. And I'm like, what are we doing? Can somebody explain to me what this is? And I was working for another designer at the time by the name of Cliff Welch, and Cliff was a really terrific guy. And he said, yeah, why don't you come with me down to Disneyland one morning? Because I need to do a little research. I need to go into Fantasyland and take some photos of some murals down there and take a look at some of the shops and restaurants. And because we're using some of that in Paris. And so why don't you come with me? And I went, oh, we get to go to Disneyland? Really? We get to go? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, sure, let's go. So early in the morning before the park opened, we drive, our offices at Imagineering are in Glendale. So we drive from Glendale down to Anaheim. And, oh, geez, must have been the sun was just barely coming up. And he drives me in backstage, right? So we park backstage and we walk in through, at the time, I think it was what used to be Big Thunder Ranch. And so we walk in from there into Fantasyland. And it's hard for me to put into words the magic of that moment because nobody's in the park, yet the lights are on, and because it's sunrise and so it's still a little dusky out, right? And the music is playing in the lands, the background music is playing. There's people that are finishing up, getting things ready for the day. The landscapers are doing their final touches. The paint crew is doing their final touch-ups. Everybody's getting everything ready. But you basically have the park to yourself, right? There's nobody there. And I walked into Fantasyland and Cliff said, this is what we're doing. And my jaw dropped. I was like, are you kidding me? This is incredible. And so I spent the day with Cliff walking around the park, and then he like saw the stars in my eyes and he was like, okay, let's go look at some other stuff so you get an idea of what it is we're doing. And just with every moment, I went, oh, this is just like theater, only more zeros in everything, right? It's like more zeros in how long it takes to design it, more zeros in the budget, more zeros in how long it's going to play after it opens, right? And so I started to get comfortable with that and go, yes, this is storytelling. This is storytelling at probably its highest form. And because every part of what you see and experience on stage is part of the story. And I knew, okay, I found my tribe. This is it. this is my tribe. And so that began my love affair and my journey with Disney. And so that was 1990. And before I knew it, I was on a path to a 30-year career at Imagineering and had no idea that I was going to stick around. I thought they signed me to a 90-day contract, so I thought I'd be around for 90 days. And then they kept renewing the contract. And then 3 years later, they said, do you want to become a real Imagineer? Do you want to really stick around? And so I said, yeah, you know what? This isn't bad. I think I'll stay. Thanks.
Wow. That's incredible. The fact that you went from 0 to 1,000, basically, as far as, Disney goes, that's unreal. I can't even imagine, like you were saying. I was getting chills of thinking about what Fantasyland would be like. And that's me, having been there before and having experienced it. That had to have been just the most magic you could have experienced. That's so cool.
Oh, it absolutely was. You're right. That feeling, I think I still feel today when I tell the story because it so impacted me emotionally. I just couldn't believe that a place like this existed. Yeah. And that there were not just a small group of people, there were a large amount of people employed in the activities of designing it, of building it, of maintaining it, of operating it, of keeping the magic going. And it really kind of overwhelmed me when I thought about the complexities of what it took to create this, but then also to keep it up.
That's just so cool. Well, I am excited to hear more and more to come once we get through the rest of our questions. But so when you enter Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom on a first day of one of your visits, do you have a way that you like to attack the park? Do you always go forward to Fantasyland? Do you like to hang a left towards Adventureland? What do you like to do?
Now, all right. That's a tough one to answer, right? Because you're approaching this, I think, interestingly, from a guest perspective, right? Who when you come in purely as a guest, which I have done many times, right? When you come in purely as a guest, especially if you've been to Disneyland before, you sort of have a preconceived notion of your day, of the experience. You might have mapped out in your head, here are the attractions I want to make sure I see. And I don't want to leave without making sure that I've checked these things off my list. But more often than not, when I went to Disneyland, I was either going for work, right? So I was there for research. I was there to review some work that was under construction. And I would then take some time. My favorite thing to do, by the way, in going to Disneyland was just to observe. Yeah. I would find a place to sit and watch guests interact with things. And it wasn't always positive, right? I mean, it was helpful for me to see where we had made missteps, where we didn't always get it right, and what were causing those points of anguish or aggravation. And so often when I was coming for work and I had a few moments to myself, I would go find what was really wonderful to do was sit on the porch on Main Street, along Main Street, and find if there was a seat available. Too often people already know to grab those seats because when the parade comes by, they want to be there for the parade. But if I could find a place to sit along Main Street, or if I could find a little bench, or around Fantasyland. Fantasyland always provided me with those moments of what not to do, because the congestion, the strollers, the families, everybody who's trying to have a good time and enjoy their day, ultimately there would be a moment in Fantasyland of that tension happening, right? That I would go, okay, how can we address that? What can we do to make that not a point of tension, right? But when I would bring my kids, or I would bring up friends who would come to visit, and it would be their first time, I would sort of try to take a very slow and calm approach and not rush anywhere. Because to me, I think you miss the beauty of it if you're like, oh, I need to run from rope drop to my favorite attraction. Well, maybe if that's the one reason why you came today, you want to make sure, and especially now, I understand, we're a victim of our own success. We create these attractions that people, they hear about, they see on social media, they want to experience, so Rise of the Resistance is a great example. It's just such a marvelous attraction. And yet only so many people are going to be able to get on that in a day. And so some people are going to go home, unfortunately, not able to see it that day. And so I get that urgency that says, I want to get there. But for me, coming to the park is about the whole experience, about the environment that I'm in, and enjoying that escape that I've left the real world behind. And I'm now in a place where I can I can feel it's hard for me to put into words, but there's this mixed feeling of safe and comforted and pleasurable and adventure and all these things mixed together that I just want to go explore and let things happen, not force it to happen, but let it happen. So I might be walking through the park and I might discover an opportunity that I wasn't sure was going to be there. So maybe we come around the corner and depending upon who I'm with, I see that the wait for Tiki Room isn't very long. And I'm like, hey, let's duck into Tiki Room. Because maybe the person I'm with has a young child who would be enchanted by the birds in Tiki Room. And I love that. I love Tiki Room because of the nostalgia of it and because what I know, the history behind it. And then we can come out of Tiki Room, and as we go along, we'll see, oh, there's Indiana Jones. Can we get a fast pass for that and maybe come back later? Now, I worked on Indiana Jones, so I'm obviously going to make people come back and ride Indiana Jones and tell me what they thought of it, right? But then I want to get over to Haunted Mansion, and I want to make sure that we experience Haunted Mansion. Now, I will tell a story here, and my son's going to hate me for this, but my son was 5 years old, and I had taken him, and also in all transparency, we were living in Tokyo at the time. So it wasn't Disneyland, it was Tokyo Disneyland. But we were in Tokyo, and I had taken the family for a Disney day at the parks, and we were just going to have fun. And he was 5, and I, as the Disney dad, was trying to get him to experience rides that maybe he wasn't quite ready for. And in hindsight, I probably pushed him a little too much. And I took him over Splash Mountain.
Oh.
And I showed him Splash. And I said, hey, what do you think about that ride? And my son's name is Evan. And Evan looked at it, and he was kind of with a lot of excitement, but at the same time, a little trepidation, because he saw the boats coming down. And he thought, he goes, Dad, that looks like a really tall drop. And I said, oh, Evan, no, it's really, that's not a bad drop at all. It's really simple, and it's over before you know it, and it'll be okay. Well, I talked him into it, right? I talked him into going on Splash with me because I love the ride. I just think it's a fabulous ride. And of course, we got to that drop, the big drop that takes you outside. And I looked over it. Well, by the way, in Tokyo, you sit back to you don't sit back to back like you do in Anaheim. You sit side by side. So I looked over at him sitting next to me, and I realized, oh, this was a horrible mistake. This is not going to go well. And we splashed down, and he was terrified and white as a ghost, and we got off of the ride, and he was so mad at me. And it took him about, if you'd ask him, I think it was about another 10 years before he ever trusted me again on another ride. That was it. I could not get him to ride anything else that I asked him to ride. He was done. But so I don't know that I answered your original question.
Hey, that's okay.
But you did.
Yeah.
You're telling that story of Splash Mountain. That reminds me of the first time I rode Splash Mountain. It was like the year it opened or the year after it opened. Well, the thing is at the time I wore glasses, and I was extremely blind as a kid, extremely nearsighted. So as we're going up, my mom decides, oh, let's take your glasses off so you don't lose them. So not only am I going down this terrible drop, but I'm also basically blind going down this drop.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
So maybe that was better.
I
didn't see it coming.
No, but that's even more terrifying. You're like, I can't see what's happening.
Right. You get that feeling in your stomach, right? Where, where that feeling of the gravity leaving your body is like, what's going on here?
And I still have this habit on any of those like thrill attractions. Teresa can attest to this.
Yes, it's hilarious.
That anytime there's a photo involved, I look so brave and like, yeah, until the second the thing flashes, and then I'm like grabbing onto something and looking terrible. Yes. Well, now I'm curious because, obviously there's some attractions you worked on, but our final preemptive question, I guess, here is, what's your favorite attraction? So this could be at any of the parks, even though we're a Disneyland podcast, it could be any park. What's your favorite attraction? If you have one. People say this is hard.
It is hard.
Well, it is hard because, favorite can mean there's so many ways to describe favorite. It's like, what's your favorite ice cream, right? What's your favorite dessert? Because some of it's contextual. Sure. What have I done that day, and how am I feeling, and what is the emotion I want to have at this moment? Because different rides invoke different emotions. They invoke different feelings, and so sometimes you want that thrill. Sometimes you're looking for that shot of endorphins racing through your body, and other times you're in a more sentimental mood. You want to reach back to something in your memory banks about your childhood or about maybe one of your favorite movies, and that becomes your favorite experience. So it's a very complex thing, and people, I'm old, right? So, the older we get, the more of these memories we have and we think about for different reasons. So I'm gonna answer your question in probably 3 parts. It may go longer than that, but I'm gonna go 3 parts. Part one is, so as a designer and on attractions that I've worked on, my favorite one is Journey to the Center of the Earth in Tokyo Disney Sea. That was almost 5 years of my life, right, was spent working on that single attraction, along with Mysterious Island and Tokyo Disney Sea. But it was I felt like an elegant story that we told in that attraction. And it's a thrill ride. It's the same ride system, for those who haven't been able to go to Tokyo or know anything about that ride. It's the same ride system as Test Track in Epcot.
Oh.
Right? So it has
Radiator Springs.
Yeah, and Radiator Springs, exactly. And so it has the ability to accelerate and decelerate and to climb hills and do drops. And the story we wanted to tell there was based on the writings of Jules Verne. So the whole land is based on Jules Verne's writings of Mysterious Island, Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In our writings, though, in our telling of the story, we made Captain Nemo the central figure, and Nemo is a benevolent figure, not someone who is pessimistic about the future. And Journey to the Center of the Earth represented his explorations of inside a volcano. And you go on this exploration of the volcano, and you find fantastic things inside of it that are magical and mysterious and sense of awe and wonder. But then, as sometimes happens, something horrible goes wrong, and you find yourself off track, and you find yourself ultimately face to face with a lava monster. And this lava monster is upset because, unbeknownst to you, that when you went off track, you ran over some of her eggs, and she's not very happy with you. And so she wants revenge. And just before she can enact her revenge, the volcano explodes and blasts you out of the volcano. And then as you blast out of the volcano, you fall to earth and end up into a lava tube that shoots you out through a cavern in the caldera, and ultimately, luckily for you, leads you back to safety.
Wow. Very cool.
The thrill of that experience to me, and by the way, it took me several years to get my son to be able to ride that with me because of his experience on Splash. He was not going to do another drop ride, right?
Like
ever
lava
again.
Monster? No.
No. Another drop, right? No. I'm not doing 0 G's with Dad. That's just not going to happen. But that as a design, as a project that I was able to work on with a great team, right? I mean, it wasn't just me. There was this incredible team of people that worked on this. And it's still today my favorite experience. And a lot of it is tied to the emotion that I had of being part of that process, being part of the creative process to help bring that to reality. Now I say that, and then I'll tell you there's other attractions that I love for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Because on the most simple, mundane level, I love Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because there's nothing like that. There is nothing like that anywhere, and we couldn't do it again today. There's no way you could make that ride again today because it violates every code and everything, right? I mean, the scenery is so close to you. The ride track is so tight. You make all these tight turns, and everything's right there. Today, that would have to be 20 feet away from you and well out of your reach envelope. And then you go to hell, right? I mean, come on. In a Disney ride, you find yourself and there's these little demons around you. And I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. This is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life.
I love how you and Terry both love the fact that it goes to hell.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I mean, look, because we all love Disney. And I love that the company has always stood for family and has been cognizant how important that is to maintain throughout their history. But every once in a while, when you get to explore that little dark side, just kind of sneak it in a little bit, right? That mischievous imp in me just lights up, and I have fun with that, right? I mean, and to me, it's appropriate. It's the type of fun that we should be able to have.
Oh, totally.
And celebrate it.
The thing that's also so cool about Mr. Toad that I kind of, I don't know, overlook and don't realize is really how simplistic the attraction is. And if you like really pay attention to the set and to even just the different effects, it's really basic, you know, when you compare it to other things. It's and the fact that it's still there, it's still popular, is just makes it even like that much more incredible.
As a theater guy, right, I was used to designing one on small budgets with a short timeline for building, but also to focus the audience's attention on the things that are important and not worry about the stuff that isn't, right? Tell your story and be clear and consistent in how you tell your story. And what I was so impressed with at Imagineering, especially those early attractions that were done in the 60s, the 50s and 60s, you see that same sensibility in design, right? If you walk any of those rides with the work lights on, Pirates is my favorite because everybody just, and rightly so, is agog at Pirates, of the complexity of it, of the size of it, of you know, it's such a monumental attraction. But you turn the work lights on and you go, oh my goodness, this is a big empty room with just a few simple set pieces in it and some audio animatronics. Yeah. And a lot of it just goes to black. And even some of the stuff that you think is dimensional isn't dimensional. It's painted, but painted in a way to make you believe that it's dimensional. The tricks that they used in rides like Pirates, in Haunted Mansion, in the dark rides of Fantasyland that were done 50s, 60s, and even up into the early 80s when they rehabbed them, they were truly masters at that. And it just impressed me so much of how they knew where to focus the guests and still tell a wonderful story. Now, I have to admit, I was part of those teams that then started to tip the needle to the fully immersive cues and the fully immersive storytelling. And you got to design every inch of the showbox, right? So I was part of Indiana Jones. I was part of Tower of Terror. I was, Journey to the Center of the Earth, same thing, right? So I was on those teams and we all went along with the idea of, no, let's create this really cool immersive environment because that's what people expect today. And in some ways we created that expectation ourselves. Now I still love those, but I know from probably if you had a finance person on the call with us, they would tell us that we're spending a lot of money for that, right? There's a lot of money that goes into the rock work, the character facade, the theming of all those spaces. And it's a fair, I'll call it a criticism, but maybe that's too harsh a word. It's just a fair comment to say, is it always necessary? I don't know. It certainly in those early attractions, and maybe it's our sentimentality with the past that makes us think that way, it wasn't. And I wish I was smarter about that. I wish I had been a better designer when I was thinking about that, to think about how to capitalize on that.
The thing that's so neat, though, is that they both exist in the same place, and they both have... I mean, look at Peter Pan. Peter Pan's always got this crazy wait, and it's what? I don't know, 2-3 minutes is all the attraction is, and people will stand there and wait. Yep.
You're flying, right? Yeah. Who doesn't want to fly? That's just what's so great about Peter Pan. And I'm glad you mentioned Peter Pan, because that's probably it's my favorite because my kids, when the look on their face when they rode Peter Pan just was so magical. Yeah, I love it too. It's a very difficult attraction to walk, right, for many reasons, and to look at. But I love that attraction. I love all the dark rides, even though some of them are, I'm going to regress and tell the story. So a good friend of mine. Who is from the Midwest, he and his wife brought their little 5-year-old boy out to California, and I took him to Disneyland. And there's something about the age 5, I think, which is a tough age, right? It's like...
Don't let Greg near the 5-year-olds, people.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, you're old enough to, from a height standpoint, right? You can start to ride things, but maybe from how you process the world around you, there are things that we all take as adults as we know that's make-believe, we know that's imaginary, but they still see as real, right? That to them is a real thing. And so anyway, he comes out and I take him to Disneyland, and his father works in theater. And so I thought he would have a pretty good understanding of theatrical techniques and all that stuff. Yeah. So I take him to Fantasyland, and we're going to ride the dark rides. And we do Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because, as I mentioned, that's one of my favorites. I thought he would love it. And he came off just shaking, just terrified. And I went, his name was Christopher. I said, Christopher, are you okay? Is everything fine? And he says, yeah, that was kind of scary. I'm not sure I'd like that. And I said, think of it this way. When we're riding those rides, what you're seeing is a lot like what your dad does in a theater. It's just scenery on stage telling a story, but instead of actors, we have puppets. And so the puppets are just like the actors that you would see in a show. And he went, oh, he thought about it for a second. And he thought, okay, that makes sense to me. I'm okay with that. And I said, great, let's go on Pinocchio. And I take him on Pinocchio. And I'm thinking, oh, what could go wrong on Pinocchio, right? This is fabulous, Pinocchio. And we get to Pleasure Island, and every kid's turning into a donkey. And he's thinking he's going to turn into a donkey. And we get off Pinocchio, and he just looks over at me and he says, no more puppet rides. No more puppet rides.
Oh, man. I mean, that you do make a very good point that at age 5, they're tall enough. But yes, it's a little... it's still a lot to take for their really little minds.
It really is. And so I learned my lesson on this and always told people, look, wait for your child to get a little bit older. And then I'll be happy to take them anywhere they want. But 5 might be and I'd say that Dumbo certainly is a great experience. The carousel is a great experience. Just being in the park is a great experience. Tom Sawyer's Island is a great experience. The Mark Twain. There's certainly great things you can do, but. Don't go on the puppet rides.
Oh, too funny. Too funny. Well, I am very excited to start talking more about your career and your time there. And I kind of want to go back to the beginning. You don't have to pick up right as you entered Fantasyland for the first time and walked the park for the first time. But what were some of the earlier projects that you were on that really kind of stick out to you?
Well, as I mentioned, I started on Paris. Really didn't know what I was doing, and I, to be honest with you, I wasn't very good. So a lot of the stuff
kept you anyways.
After a 30-year career in Imagineering, I wasn't very good.
Well, especially in those early days, I didn't really know what I was doing, and luckily there were a lot of good people around me who just mentored me and helped me along, and really that kind of came to fruition. For real when I worked on Roger Rabbit for Toontown. And so that was my first attraction to work on from sort of beginning to end. I was brought in as a show set designer on that one. And the person who was sort of my direct supervisor on that, his name was Robert Coltrane. And boy, I tell you, if you ever want a good interview, you guys talk to Robert Coltrane. Robert not only was a brilliant show set designer when I worked with him, he went on to be a brilliant creative and is responsible for many attractions that I'm sure Radiator Springs Racers, for instance, was one that Robert and he would work with a writing partner often by the name of Kevin Rafferty. So Robert and Kevin would often work together on these. But Robert was a master of ride layout and storytelling because Robert also had a theater background. We became very partial to people who understood theater as a storytelling medium because, again, what we're doing in theme parks is very like that. And he taught me so much about how to tell a story in these 14-second intervals, because essentially that's what you're doing, right? When you get in a ride vehicle and that ride vehicle takes off, each scene that you're in is about on a ride like Roger Rabbit is like about 14 seconds long. And so you have to be able to tell a story in 14 seconds. And then move to the next scene and the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. And so how do you get a point across in 14 seconds, but visually, and audibly as well, too, through whatever devices that you're using in that particular attraction. And the the real difference between theater and theme park storytelling is that time, that essence of motion and time. Instead of staying static in a seat and watching something take place, you're an active participant moving through it with, in many ways, time can be a benefit, but it's also an enemy of trying to get your point across, right? You're always trying to figure out, okay, I got to boil this down to the pure essence of what it is I want to say. And so working on Roger Rabbit under Robert and a great team of other people who worked on that, Joanne Cicero, who was the overall creative director for Toontown, he and I became good friends later on working in Tokyo together. It was, as a young designer, watching these people who were masters of the craft, I was just blown away. And it was also I had to figure out a way, because when I joined, by the way, everybody was still drawing by hand, right? We were all using pencil and paper and whatever mediums we worked in. And I was scared to death that I just was never going to measure up. I was never going to be as good as all these other artists who had trained at Art Center or CalArts or wherever they had come from. And so I thought, I got to find a way to stick around. So I had taught myself computer drawing. And so I said, I went to Robert, who was my lead, and said, I think I can do Roger Rabbit in the computer. And he looked at me and he was like, Greg, there's no straight lines in Roger Rabbit. Have you watched the movie? Have you like, what Toon style is? Toon's all about curves and just morphing objects into soft, friendly shapes, right? And I said, no. Now, I have to admit, all I was offering to do was doing the floor plans and some elevations. And, I wasn't going to do every single figure and every single prop. But I thought there was something there, right? I thought I would be able to like carve a niche for myself if I could do something different. So Roger Rabbit was the first time we used the computer to do drawings. And these are the types of drawings that you would use to then eventually go into a shop and produce the scenery with, right? And that there were a couple other people at the time who were experimenting with the computer and playing around, and they saw what I was doing, and we all kind of banded forces together and started figuring out, okay, if Disney's going to go to this path, let's figure out how we do it. And let's start setting some processes and standards for how we do it. And that kind of helped make people go, oh yeah, we should keep Greg. Let's keep her around for a little bit.
Wow. That's so cool. What was your part in Roger Rabbit? So you've got someone, like you said, and you mentioned Kevin Rafferty. So you've got someone that's basically the show writer. So they kind of do, in essence, the script. So then how do you go from that to then where do you pick that up as set design? Do you then say, okay, here's a script. We have to now figure out, here's our space.
Yeah. So usually on a project like Roger Rabbit or really any attraction, you'll have, in the early phases, you'll have a show writer, you'll have a show producer. Later in my career, I became a show producer, but the show producer is responsible for really putting the strategy together for how you're going to execute design. And then there'll be a creative director. The creative director really works closely with the show writer to really come up with what is it that we want to do? What is the story? Where does it take place? When does it take place? Why are we doing this? And start to think about how to tell that story. What's the right ride system to use? What's the right length of time that we want to be here? And then there's all kinds of other factors that enter into that, right? I'm simplifying it just for the purposes of this conversation, but it's a pretty complex process that has a lot of people that weigh into it. But on the creative side of it, it really begins with that show writer, creative producer, creative director. The three of them really sort of lead it. And then eventually they will bring on illustrators or storyboard artists who they will direct to say, let's help articulate what this looks like. That usually happens in a phase we call Blue Sky. And in Blue Sky, you're articulating what is it, why are we doing it, and what do we want you to feel when you're experiencing this. And so from that Blue Sky, if everybody gets on board with what it looks like, what the story intent is, we put a very rough estimate against it and a very rough schedule against it and say, yeah, we think we can do this in this amount of time and for this amount of money. We'll go on to the next phase, which is concept design. concept design, you start to bring in some more people who have specific skill sets, architects, ride designers, people that can say, yeah, this ride layout, we're going to need to modify this a little bit because the vehicle maybe can't make that turn or can't go as fast as you think it does, right? There's real world physics that enter into that you don't expect the creative director to always understand or to have deep knowledge about. They have a level of understanding based on their experience, but they don't have to be experts.
They must have skipped that step for rocket rods.
Oh, don't get me started on that one. Don't get me started on that one. That's a good one, though. That's a great story. But I'll stay on topic.
Sorry.
We'll shelve that for later.
Well, yeah. Put a pin on that one.
I'm making notes here. I got quite the list.
All right, so, long story short, as you grow that team, as you add people on, the show set designers come on to take those illustrations and storyboards that were created and start to turn them into drawings that have measurements, right? To start to say, oh, this is how big it is, and this is how we think we might make it, and this is, the materials that we might use, and this is, we got to put a speaker in it, or we got to make a special effect hide in it, or we've got to have an animatronic or an animated prop pop through it, or something like that. And so the show set designer starts to articulate all those things for the scenic elements, but also then becomes the traffic cop for where everything stays and lives. So, I think at one time we used to say we have 140 disciplines at WDI, and I think that's true. The show set package would contain essentially the information from these other disciplines and make sure that they all cohabitated together so that the special effect didn't collide with the show lighting, didn't get in the way of the animatronic base frame, didn't interfere with the reach envelope of the ride path, right?
Wow.
And so when you start to think about all the single elements that are in an attraction and then how do you make it all work together? Yeah, it makes your head hurt. And it still blows me away that Disney can do this and that we build anything, right? Because they're very complex machines.
Well,
wow.
Man, I feel like I have 2 or 3 questions I've written down from all of your talking that all relate to what you just said. But one of them, I think you just answered it basically, was from somebody who worked in the design process and to completion. You just explained the whole process of an attraction. I think a lot of people nowadays, we don't understand how complex all this stuff is. But they look at things like attractions in Walt's time and how quickly they could build these amazing things, and how nowadays it's like when Disney announces something, it's like 5 or 6 years later you get it. So my question was going to be, why does it take so long now to complete something as though it didn't before? But I think you kind of just answered it with this. They're just so much more complex nowadays that it takes a lot longer.
But take, I'll tell you, I mean, that's a great question. And it's a question we would ask ourselves all the time. And every project manager I ever worked with would ask me that question. Why can't we, Small World was done in 9 months. Why can't we do that again? Right. And there is truth in that. We have fallen in love with more complex ride systems. You look at Rise of the Resistance. That's not just a ride system. That's 3 ride systems, all put together, right? I mean, that's a very complex machine that's operating there. Soarin' is a very complex. Tower of Terror is very complex. But even the simple rides, even a boat ride that we do today, even a what we call a bus bar ride, the single car dark rides take more time than they used to. And so if you think about it, you go back to those days when Walt and the Wed Imagineers were building, there were only a couple hundred Imagineers in those days, right? In the 60s, who did Pirates of the Caribbean, who did Haunted Mansion, who did Jungle Cruise. They outsourced quite a bit. Right? They would outsource the scenery building to Gross Studios. They outsourced the landscape design, the architecture, the engineering. And in those days, there was only one park. And so that park was only open 5 days a week. And it wasn't open as many hours as it is today. And so when things broke, people had a couple of days during the week they could fix it, or you could come down at night or early in the morning and you could help fix it. And so the worry of duty cycle and the worry of like how maintainable and sustainable is this was really in the infancy of their understanding of what that meant to be operating something like Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And it was from that they realized, wow, we're doing something that's well above and beyond what anybody else is doing. We need to hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability. We need to put more effort, because it wasn't fair to the park operators and the park maintenance people to turn over those attractions and say, all right, you guys figure this out now. Right? We did our part. We designed something really cool. Now you guys got to operate it and maintain it every day. Mm-hmm. And that was the part one of my transformational moments in my career was I got to work in what's called SQS, show quality standards. And so that's a part of Imagineering that exists in the parks, where you spend your time in the park with the park operators and maintenance people, living with the attractions every day and making decisions about what needs to change. How do you keep the park running every day? How do you refresh things locally? All that. So I was that for Tokyo for 3 years. And it opened my eyes to, wow, as an Imagineer, you design it, you help build it and install it, and you walk away.
Yeah.
And you don't ever think about the consequences of the decisions you made when you did that. And I sat there for 3 years looking at the consequences of the things I had worked on for Tokyo Disney Seas going, oh my God, what did I do? These poor people, I am causing them such grief because I made choices that I thought worked great from a design standpoint, but from a maintainability, sustainability standpoint, didn't work well. And it was eye-opening. And then I suddenly began to appreciate this is why things take so long, is because you need to spend that time in design. Because in design, you're not spending the kind of money you're spending when you're in the field, right? It's a much smaller amount of money. In design, you can work it out, you can think about it, you can talk about it, you can make choices that will then inform later on how well will this work and how long will it last and what will it do to the operator and the people that are going to have to maintain this. And, we had to learn by doing, because the industry didn't exist until Walt invented it. Mm-hmm. And we've been learning every single time we do another attraction. And you think about it, we do replicate attractions, but really every time we do an attraction, it's a new thing. It's a prototype. And it comes with its own set of problems and issues that have to be resolved. And then over time, our understanding of the world and of people changes. I mean, prior to the early 90s or late 80s, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact year, and someone's going to take me to task on this, but the Americans with Disabilities Act didn't exist. Yeah. So prior to the ADA Act, we didn't think about wheelchairs like we do today. We didn't think about people with visibility or hearing or other kinds of obstacles to their ability to enjoy our product, our experiences. And ADA was a very important transformational moment as a designer. We all had to start thinking about how do we make this inclusive for everybody, right? How can we make this an enjoyable experience? And I'll tell you, it was very interesting to go through that journey to be both pre and post ADA, as we were thinking about that, because it changed queue lines, it changed ride vehicles, it changed all experiences for the better, right? I absolutely think it was not only something that Disney really took a lead on, but continues to take a lead on today to try to figure out how to continually improve in that area.
And then you got to go back to a place like Disneyland, who's been around for, almost 70 years now. And some of those attractions are still built with those original queues. And we've seen that at something like Peter Pan. It's like, well, there wasn't anywhere to put a wheelchair ramp or anything. Nope. So I guess we'll just take people in the exit. That's the best option we got.
Yep.
Right. And truly, that is one of the challenges of taking something that was built in 1955 and trying to then keep it current and not destroy the qualities that make it so special. But at the same time, we have to adapt. We have to change. We have to be cognizant of the mistakes we've made and correct them. And that's what I loved about working for the company, is that they were willing to look themselves in the mirror and have that assessment and continually do that, continually strive to make those changes. They weren't afraid to go, yep, you know what? We're not doing our best here. We can do better. Let's try and do that. I sat in so many discussions on these topics, and it would make me proud to be an Imagineer, to know that they cared, that they wanted to do better.
Well, we had so much fun talking with Greg that we have to split this into multiple episodes. So tune in next week for part 2 of our interview with Greg Combs.
Looks like we're coming in for a landing, gang. But please stay listening until trivia comes to a stop. And then you can walk to the nearest exit. Thanks for listening to the 8th wonder of the world, DLWeekly.
Welcome back to Trivia Land, where we're going to find out how you did tonight. How do you think you did tonight?
I'm not feeling super good.
Not great, but like I don't feel awful. I
didn't
felt
even
like we
answer
at least,
one of them, so I have
I-
little confidence.
I at least feel okay that we had some answers and it wasn't just like totally stumped for
true.
like 4 answers.
That is true.
Well, let's find out together, shall
Yeah.
we? All right. Your first question submitted by listener Stephen S. If you're using the Disneyland Parks app and you're on the map portion and you zoom out all the way, what 2 attractions can you see? Your guesses were Matterhorn, Grizzly River Run, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Incredicoaster. The correct answer that I was looking for was Sleeping Beauty's Castle and the Pixar Pal Around.
So I don't understand how this is being created because I've got the map up and I've zoomed all the way out and all I see is a bunch of...
Oh, how did you do that?
You bring the map up and you zoom out.
No, his won't zoom out any further, though.
Mine... And there's going to be some...
This might be an Android versus iPhone thing.
It might be.
You know what's funny?
Android, yours
Because
is
you know
iPhone.
who it is? Do you know who it is? I think it's Steve, as in Steve and Debbie. Yeah, mine's stuck too.
This might be Android versus iPhone.
Because ours, you can't even see, it doesn't do that. I just have bubbles.
Verified that Vern's does show those 2 things, and Teresa and I both have pulled up our iPhones.
We just have tiny maps, is what it looks like for us.
So, Android versus iPhone. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Is what we will put it to for now, at least.
That's okay.
And possibly I haven't updated the app in a while since I haven't been back to the park since March.
Oh, that could be a thing too, is if it's an app update or not.
All right. Anyway, let's move on.
All right.
I'd say maybe give us
We'll give you half credit.
Yeah.
Just in case it was an outdated answer or if it was a phone-specific answer.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though.
That is interesting.
Yeah. You learn something new every day.
And more than one new thing when we do
Yes.
trivia, apparently.
Yep. Your second regular round question submitted by listener Kevin M. According to Jesse's Critter Carousel, where was Jesse born? Tag said, the rootinest, tootinest Wild West. And Teresa said, nowhere. The correct answer that we were looking for was Oklahoma.
Oh, come on. That seemed like...
That's a little
That's
anticlimactic.
not as exciting as I thought.
No.
Well, it is where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
That is true.
Your third regular round question from listener Kate A. What are the names of the holiday overlays for Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters? Your answers were Nothing, Joy to the World, and the Hollow... I can't read my own writing. The Hollow Scream. The correct answer that I was looking for was Luigi's Joy to the World.
Woo!
And Luigi's Honkin' Halloween.
Oh, so close.
What did you say it was? It was the
Screams. Hollow Scream.
And you forgot Honkin'.
Halloween.
honkin'.
Honkin' Halloween.
Wow.
I remembered the hall. Because is it hall like H-A-U-L?
H-A-U-L. You did get
I
that right.
remembered the hall.
Yep.
Joy to the World. I have no idea where I pulled that out of.
And
But
as soon as you said joy, I was like, yes.
And your fourth and final regular round question from listener Donna S. How many different styles or model car are there in Radiator Springs Racers? Specifically, the ride itself. Tag said 5, and Teresa said 1. The correct answer that we were looking for And I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of images on Google so that I could confirm this. And I checked 3 different reliable sites to confirm it. It is 2.
2.
They're almost the exact same shape of car, but when you look closely at the headlights, there are large round headlights and there are sleek swept back headlights.
There's round ones?
Yep.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
This is going to sound crazy, but I wonder if it's supposed to be like...
I think it's city car versus sports car.
There you go.
Is my
Wow.
guess.
Well, that makes sense that there was only 2 because with you and I thinking about it, it seems silly that there would be more options. Okay, cool.
And as I was doing all that searching, I learned all sorts of cool things about the significance of the license plates and how many different colors there are.
I hear more trivia in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, there might be an entire trivia thing just on Radiator Springs Racers because there's all sorts of little tidbits that I learned today.
My
It's fun.
goodness.
Your bonus question tonight from listener Todd B. Donny Osmond has stated that when he and his brothers were performing in Disneyland, they still needed to attend school and do their schoolwork. Disney even provided them with a makeshift classroom. In which attraction could this classroom be found? Tag said the Opera House, and Teresa said the Main Street Cinema. The correct answer that I was looking for was the Haunted Mansion.
What? Oh.
Because it wasn't open yet.
Yeah, because it wasn't open. It was just a shell.
I bet you wish you were one of the Osmonds going to school in the Haunted Mansion.
Wow. It was probably pretty boring looking at that.
Yeah, but still, knowing what it is now, that's amazing. That was a cool question. Dang.
Well, listeners, how do you think they did? How did you do listening at home? Do you think you've got some great questions that can really stump them next week? If you've got that perfect question and you'd like to hear it live on the air, feel free to send that in to us at trivia@dlweekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us. And we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.